Welcome to the Licensing and Public Protection Committee meeting of Newcastle-under-Lyme Borough Council. It's a public meeting which is being recorded. Communications have been tested in the room and the recording will be available on the Borough Council's website. I remind members to use their desktop microphone when invited to speak by myself, and that standards of behaviour for meetings apply as set out in the Council's standing orders. Mobile phones should be switched off and set to silent. There are no planned fire drills for the evening, and the fire exits are clearly marked. In the event of the alarm activating, please follow directions of the staff. The committee meeting is run in two separate sections. Firstly will be the Licensing Committee, and secondly will be the Public Protection. So moving on to the agenda. The first part of the agenda is apologies. I have apologies from Councillor Parker, who's been substituted by Councillor Beeston. Councillor Heatham, who's been substituted by Councillor Hutchinson. Councillor Bailey, Councillor Jellyman and Councillor Clark. Is there any other apologies? No? Okay. So moving on to the first part of the Licensing Committee. Item 2 of the agenda is the minutes of the previous meeting. Does anybody have any questions or comments, or are we happy to approve those as a true record of the meeting? Everybody in favour? Yep, thank you. Oh, okay, fair enough. Okay. Okay, thank you for that. So there's no further reports on the licensing matters, so that concludes the first part of the meeting. So we'll move on to the Public Protection Committee. Item 3 of the agenda is a declaration of interest for public protection matters. Do we have any declarations of interest in the room? No. Okay, thank you. So moving on to item 4 of the agenda is a renewal of public space protection order, parks and open spaces, which will be presented by the mobile multifunction team manager, Michelle Hopper. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everybody. This report seeks the approval of members to initiate a 12-week public consultation on the renewal of a public space protection order for parks and open spaces, covering dog controls and antisocial behaviour. Following the consultation, a final report will be brought back to the committee in the autumn ahead of the current proposals being expired in November. So what is a public space protection order? This is a legal tool under the Antisocial Behaviour Crime and Policing Act 2014. It allows local authorities to manage behaviour in public spaces. In this case, we're looking at covering dog controls and antisocial behaviour and to protect residents' quality of life. The proposal is the renewal is required to address ongoing issues reported regularly in relation to dog fouling, dogs not under control, dog-on-dog attacks, and attacks on wildlife. That's just to name a few. This public space protection order also includes specific conditions in relation to alcohol prohibition and unauthorised encampments on our parks and open spaces. Members should be aware that a breach of a public space protection order results in a fixed penalty notice of £100. These can be issued by an authorised officer of Newcastle Borough Council or an authorised officer of Staffordshire Police. So what happens if it's not renewed? If this order is not renewed, we will see a loss of enforcement powers from the Borough Council. We may see an increase in dog fouling and antisocial behaviour, which will ultimately result in a decline in standards across our parks and open spaces. The consultation that's been requested is for 12 weeks. This is a public consultation which will be held with residents, stakeholders and statutory members. Members will also be able to input their own local concerns and also make suggested changes to the proposals. There are some cost implications in relation to the renewal. This is specifically around the public space protection order signage, and this is something that officers are currently exploring. Signage currently costs around £30 to £35 per sign, and as you can appreciate, there are vast areas of parks and open spaces that are covered in this order. Members should also be aware of the risks associated to these orders. There is a legal challenge if process is not followed accordingly in accordance with the legislation. And also, it also raises public perception concerns if the process is not followed. So to finish, this report is seeking the approval of members and of members of this committee to initiate a 12-week consultation in relation to the renewal of the Parks and Open Spaces Public Space Protection Order, covering dog control and antisocial behaviour. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you. Does anybody in the room have any questions for Michelle? Yes, Councillor.
Can't see you, Shell. Oh, there. There's a number of things. One of the things that drives people crazy, even those that have got dogs, is that you do see professional dog walkers with 5 and 6 dogs trugging across the parks and open spaces. Is there any provision for that in the consultation, do you think?
Thank you for that. You'll be aware of previous conversations we've had in regards to the controls around the number of dogs prohibited as part of this order. And it is one of the questions that we will propose as part of the consultation in regards to what other members of the public feel is a reasonable number that should be allowed, especially for dog walkers. They will form part of the consultation process as well. It should be noted by the members that there's been a considerable amount of research done with neighbouring authorities, and the current proposals align to a lot of the neighbouring authorities, and any risk to change the conditions to either reduce that or increase the number of dogs may also have an impact on the number of people who decide to come to our parks and open spaces and exercise dogs on them areas. Hope that helps.
Councillor.
It's me again. One of the things, this is the first time in my life where I haven't actually got a dog, so it leaves me free to go to the pub after a meeting, which is quite unique, is that lots of people, myself included, when we've had dogs, which is most of my life, is walking around here, less so when I used to live in Cheshire about 20 years ago, but walking around here, the number of bins that are available for poo bags are quite limited. And if I think this through, and at one stage when I got the dog, it made a bit hot under the collar because you're searching for sort of poo bins, and they're supposed to be painted red, and there's lots of them, there isn't. Is that if you have extra bins, you've then got to pay somebody to go around and empty them or put a lining in them or check them, because otherwise they spill over and it gets even worse than if there hadn't been a bin in the first place. So I don't know what the protocol, what the ideas, thoughts are of you as the sort of person putting this forward for consultation. Think about that. But it's a bit like the debris that comes from fast food places in town. I still think they ought to have a bin outside to collect their own litter and deal with it, and that would save us any money, and that would be a prerequisite of them having a food license in my little head. But what about the dog thing? Because it is critical. I mean, my dog could perform 4 or 5 times because she could. That's a lot of poo bags just from one household. And we've got 1 bin in Thistlebury that I know to, possibly 2. And there's a lot of dogs.
Thank you for that question. So obviously you'll be aware that whilst we have some designated dog waste collection bins, all of the bins within the borough are dual collection, so litter bins can also be utilised for dog waste as well. There has been a substantial review in regards to the bins around the borough in terms of streamlining the service that the street scene operatives perform around the number of collections that they undertake. And members can request for that to be looked at, perhaps if it's thought that bins in a particular area need more frequent collections.
Have we got them? I know it sounds a very fancy word for a poo bag collection, but if it's an audit, do we know where these are? Has somebody mapped them? Are they spread out enough?
Yes, so as part of the review that was undertaken by Street Scene, an audit was done in regards to the number of bins in a variety of locations across the whole of the borough, and it was deemed that at that point it was there was a satisfactory number of bins in our parks and open spaces that would be able to facilitate the need of the public in regards to utilising those parks and open spaces.
Thank you. Can I have a supplementary? Yeah. Well, I've got my mic on. Where I'm in Thistlebury, and that's my turf, that's my little zone, it's my tribe. The signage that is for anything to do with dogs or whatever or fouling, it's all worn down. It's been nibbled by tin worm at the ends over decades, I think, and it's about 8 foot up in the air. So their intensity to motivate people to pick the dog poo up is not, the signs are a waste of time. And I just think 35 quid a pop isn't too bad to put them at the right height, because people don't look up. They tend to look at eye level. I think that's somewhere else that there needs a bit of a trawl as well to see what situation they need to be in, how close they are to the poo bag collective point, and so on. There's lots of, and I know it sounds very trivial, but the last thing you want to do when you're going for a walk is to do a Torval and Dean and skid in something down the pavement. I would have thought.
No, I can appreciate that. Yes, so as I said, there's currently a review in regards to the signage. As with any public space protection order, when we do a renewal, we always look at the signage to make sure it's up to date and satisfactory in regards to outlining the measures that are in this proposal. We're also, as part of this, we will also do an educational piece that will be pushed out by our corporate communications team around educating people that there is a public space protection order in place and that there are rules that are required to be followed in regards to that. Officers will continue to patrol the parks and open spaces. We have a list of hotspot areas where we see quite substantial breaches of the public space protection order. So we will continue to obviously focus efforts there, and obviously everywhere else in the borough where we start getting complaints.
Well, with the Butts being a huge dog walking area, of course, I mean, if you just stand on the corner and you look up the lamppost, it's literally 8 foot in the air and you can't read the writing anymore. I think it was put there when God was a little boy. It's not effective at all. So I think someone needs to take a serious look at the provision of signage.
Noted.
Thank you.
You're not done yet, Michelle. There is another question, Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, on these notes, the agenda here, we've got items 9 to 12 inclusive, which refer to poo bag use, maximum dogs 6, and use of dog leads when made to, or seems like they always are. But each one contains the phrase, the person has reasonable excuse for failing to do so. I can't imagine what that reasonable excuse might be for any of those things. Perhaps you could elaborate.
Yes, it's a legal term that's always referred to in the guidance. Obviously, when officers witness any form of offence or breach of public space protection order, we always give that person the opportunity to correct that behaviour. So, for example, if a dog fouls in front of an officer, the officer will challenge the owner of that dog and give them the opportunity to clean up that waste. If at that point they have no means to do so, then obviously we would go down a breach of that.
Thank you. One more question. I represent a rural part beyond the motorway. It's called Loggerheads. And I'm wondering to what extent, if any, this applies to that area, such as yesterday I was walking around the Burntwood, vast area. Are you covering that with this legislation?
Yes, so this covers all of our parks and open spaces. You'll note in the order and specifically makes reference to a number of country parks that we also work in conjunction with. So obviously they're owned by Staffordshire County Council. So we work with a lot of landowners around where there's public access to their land to ensure that the prohibitions and the conditions that we're implementing are consistent across all parks and open spaces. So that message is very consistent.
We've got a couple more questions. Councillor, next to you.
Questions about the encampments that we've recently found on London Road. Is there actually a fixed penalty notice issued when they go out to see these encampments? Privately owned land, sorry.
Yeah, so the encampment you're referring to on London Road it was an encampment on a private land, so there's no breach of a public space protection order in regards to that. It's a private land matter and therefore it's a civil matter, and the landowner is required to undertake their own civil proceedings around the removal of that encampment. The council work in conjunction with those landowners to guide them in regards to the process and to also obviously encourage them to clean up after an encampment as well. The proposal that is brought before the committee today is in relation to an unauthorised encampment on our parks and open spaces. So that will be dealt with as part of a public space protection order. However, there are other legal tools that we will utilise in terms of the removal of that encampment.
Thank you, Councillor Hutchison.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a few comments, Michelle. Section 7, dog fouling, failure to remove dog faeces. That's probably the one thing that councillors get asked about more than anything else when in relation to this. So I'm very much in favour of what you've written in the report. £100 fixed penalty notice, definitely. We should be enforcing that as much as we can. I believe the current government is planning on increasing that to £500 fixed penalty notice. Well, as a dog owner myself, a responsible dog owner, I would say £500 fixed penalty notice. If we can get people to be responsible dog owners, then we're living in a cleaner borough. Dogs on lead by discretion, dogs on lead and the dogs exclusion area. Again, what you've written in the report, well done. The dog exclusion area, it's the fact that little dogs can dig. It's not just the faeces that they can leave behind, but dogs can dig. And then little ankles can fall in the holes, and then they can be broken ankles and sprained ankles, which could be quite bad on little feet and little ankles. So definitely, I think what you've written in the report has my support. Not sure about the maximum 6 dogs. The dog walker that we employ, she does a maximum of 3. Now, to me, 3 Cavalier King Charles Spaniels is quite easy going. 3 full-grown Alsatians, it's a bit. I just wondered would there be any flexibility on that to mention specific breeds? Because if it was a Bernese Mountain Dog, yeah, I don't think anybody could walk 6 of them. But if it was 6 Chihuahuas, they might have a chance. And I'm pleased to see Section 12 means to pick up dog fouling. I mean, any dog owner that's in the room, when you go out, you've got poo bags in every single pocket, in your jeans, in your coat. And I've even got them on my belt with a dispenser. So again, challenging people and saying, have you got the means to pick up after your dog? Definitely gets my vote as well. But the only thing I maybe have an issue with on the dog section of this report is the maximum 6. Because as I said, 3 big Alsatians would be strong and it'd be difficult for somebody to handle them, especially if 2 of them started fighting.
Yes, thank you for that. And I think this is why consultations so useful in terms of ascertaining what the public's perception is in regards to the proposals. And that's why we'll bring a further report back to the committee in regards to the results of that consultation. But please be reassured that as part of the consultation, we'll make specific reference around the condition, around the number of dogs, because it is an area where we have had some criticism. And it is one that's sort of debated quite considerably. I'm not opposed to reducing the maximum number, but I would appreciate perhaps getting the residents' perception in regards to what their expectations would be as us as a local authority in regards to this order.
Thank you. I think I have to agree, being a dog owner myself, the days of finding loose change been pocketed gone, and it is, as Councillor Beeston's just shown, poo bags for dogs. So, Councillor Beeston, you've got a question?
Yeah. Do you enforce the rules in cemeteries?
Yes, we do.
I quite often walk my dogs in Newcastle Cemetery, and there seems to be a few people who've always have loose dogs in there, which is quite distressing, as we have family graves in there, and the sorts of things they can get up to around them is not doesn't bear thinking about, really. How often are they patrolled?
So I have a team of enforcement officers that conduct parks patrols as well as other vast range of enforcement activity. Parks and open spaces are patrolled as much as they can be. Obviously, I would encourage any members, if they've got particular concerns around a specific place where they've identified people a breach of the rules, to report that in so that we can dedicate some time to that space to do some relevant enforcement. And also any intelligence you have around what that individual looks like, a description of the dog, times a day is always useful in terms of us targeting the enforcement activities around that.
Thank you very much. That's really helpful. Could I also say something about the 6-dog limit? It's not just 6 dogs on a lead, is it? It could be 6 loose dogs. And personally, I think that's too many. I mean, sometimes I take my dogs to the old golf course, and we've kind of stopped doing that because there's very often bands of dogs with a dog walker, and they don't have control over all of them, which is a bit worrying, really. So thank you.
That's a very good point. Michelle, have you got any comment to that?
Yes, so obviously, again, it's around, the whole purpose of this order is around people having control of the dog, and that's the purpose of this order, is in regards to the dog controls. So I think, again, it's going to be really useful for us to have a public consultation where we can really look at that as to whether that's something that people support or they don't. And if they don't, then obviously we can look at reducing that number down to what members feel is a more reasonable, practical number.
Sorry, do we have to justify why we would go for less and someone else would go for 6? Because you were saying that other authorities are putting the limit at 6.
I think on the back of a public consultation, that is reasonable justification if we have evidence to show that the public are in support of that.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any more questions for Michelle? Yep.
Just a final comment really to the new councillors in the room. If you do get any residents complaining about people that don't pick up the dog feces, then if you can get some times of the day, is it between 7 and 9? Is it between 6 and 8 in the evening? Whatever. And then you could then log it on the system and then give as much detail as you can. Then Michelle can arrange one of the enforcement officers, not every day, but now and again, to go and park up near that area. And if we can catch someone, £100 fixed penalty notice, hopefully soon to be £500 fixed penalty notice, that would hopefully then make that resident a more responsible resident. It'll make them think twice about not picking up.
Thank you very much. Any more comments from the room? Yeah.
Sorry, Michelle, I'm done with dogs. But this is just a comment because it refers to the butts. I mean, we do, it's such a beautiful open space, and we do get a lot of concerns that occur there. And whilst it's nothing to do with your report, if I can just raise it as a heads up here, in that there seems to be an overlap between your determination to protect public spaces, which I know is dear to your heart and also mine, and also fly tipping that occurs. And I'm raising it now so that it's in your head for the future. At the moment, we have some work going on over the butts at a particular house or near to the butts, where there's been some fly tipping from renovation of a premises. And it would be useful if you have that in your head whilst you're looking at the open spaces and public parks and so on, that you might want to sort of have a little look at it. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for that. Obviously, we have separate powers that we can utilise in regards to fly tipping offences. Obviously, again, encouraging members, if you are aware of any fly tipping on the parks and open spaces in relation to any renovation works, garden works, you know, we do see it, but we rely on people reporting that in. Officers can then investigate that accordingly and determine what the most appropriate outcome should be in regards to that.
Thank you. So if the room is happy, we'll ask the committee if they are happy to approve a public consultation to be initiated for a 12-week period on the renewed PSPO as detailed in Appendix A. Everybody in favour? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving on to Agenda 5, which is the Air Quality Action Plan for 26 to 30. This has been deferred now for a future meeting, so we'll move on to item number 6 on the agenda, which is the Public Protection Subcommittee arrangements, which will be presented by Licensing Lead Officer Matthew Burton.
I'll just speak loudly. Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, this is a report in relation to the dates and arrangements for the 2026-27 Public Protection Subcommittee meetings. Just wait of background.
Sorry, Matt, just a second. Is any of the mics by working, just obviously for the recording?
Everybody? Okay.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Chair. I'll start again. This report is in relation to Public Protection Subcommittee arrangements for the forthcoming year. Just before we get to recommendations, just a small by way of background. Since 2018, all taxi licensing decisions or a number of taxi licensing decisions have been delegated to a subcommittee specifically designed for that purpose. That's worked really well. Prior to that, the entire committee on a night like this would sit and hear taxi licensing applications, which wasn't really workable or viable. So the committee arrangements we have at the moment certainly work well. So just by way of acknowledging what the arrangements have been to date, we hold our meetings typically on Wednesdays. We try to alternate them between the afternoon and the evenings to allow for flexibility for people's availability. We do have a pre-meet half an hour before for members with legal advisors and officers just to confirm the details. We hold them roughly once per month, as you'll see in the table at 2.4. We tend to hear a maximum of 5 cases or reports each agenda. Typically it's 3 or 4, any more than that, and they do take some time. If we do have any further meetings in, then we can programme those in. And we do have 2 ones that aren't on the agenda, one for tomorrow and one for Tuesday the 7th of July. We are looking for 1 more member to join each of those subcommittees. If anyone is available, please come and speak to me afterwards. In terms of the programmes of meetings, we've developed it to try and give fairness to all members to attend. So for the forthcoming year, every member sitting on the committee has been sort of put down for 2 to 3 of those meetings. To be quorate, we require 3 members, but we do invite 4. So we're perfectly acceptable to have 3 or 4 in attendance. The chair of the subcommittee will be decided by the members who are in attendance. And if members who are on the list and it's programmed in, they can't attend on that day for whatever reason, then they can simply notify the Democratic Services and Licensing departments of a substitute once they have arranged for one. At the meetings, as well as the members, there's 1 to 2 of the licensing officers there to help support the subcommittee and provide information in relation to the case, and also a legal officer advisor as well, who will help on the points of law and the policy. The programme at 2.4 is what is being proposed. It obviously can be changed if members are unavailable at certain times, but all we would ask is that appropriate substitutes are found and then notified in the ordinary way. So in terms of the recommendations for the report, it's threefold. 1 is that the committee agreed to receive this report and retain the frequency of meetings of once per month. Secondly, to note the date and time that each member is proposed to attend a subcommittee within the programme at 2.4, and also to notify Democratic Services of an available substitute in the event that they are unable to attend themselves, and they provide that substitute details. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Any questions? Yes, Councillor Beeston.
Can substitutes to this committee be substitutes on the subcommittees?
Yes, they can. It's a matter for the committee, really. What we've typically tried to do is try for full members of the committee first, but the option is there. That's the reason why there are substitutes present and available. So yes, there's no problem with substitutes, providing they've gone through the training either from officers or from external trainer. There's no problem with them sitting on the subcommittees.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments? No. So just reiterating what Matthew said, is the committee happy to, one, receive the report and retain the frequency of meetings of once per month? Everybody in favour for that one? Yeah. Thank you. Number 2, note the date and time each member is proposed to attend a subcommittee. Everybody approval with that, please? Yeah. Thank you. And finally, number 3, notify Democratic Services of an available substitute in the event that you're unable to attend a meeting that you're due to attend. Everybody in favour? Yeah. Thank you very much. So moving on to item 7 of the agenda is the Food Safety Service Plan for 26 and 27 and review of the performance in 25 and 26. And this is going to be presented by the Health Manager, Gareth Harvey. Over to you, Gareth.
Thank you, Chair. This report is to make the committee aware of our Food Safety Service Plan. It outlines the work plan by the Food and Safety team this year, along with a review of last year's performance. But I also want to give you a quick overview about the work of the Food and Safety team to just give you some context to the report. So in law, the council has to provide a food hygiene service to enforce food hygiene regulations in local food businesses. The Food Standards Agency, the FSA, dictate the standards that local authorities need to meet in their food law code of practice that we have to adhere to. In that code of practice, that requires us to produce an annual service plan and present that to councillors, which is what this report is about. In terms of an overview of our service, you'll see in the service plan, we have just over 1,000 food businesses in Newcastle. These consist of a range of different types of takeaways, restaurants, retail shops, manufacturers, nurseries, schools, etc. Anywhere producing food for the public. When a food business operator starts a business, they have to legally register with us of that business, and they have to give us at least 28 days notice of that business opening. And what that does is that triggers a food hygiene inspection by one of our officers. And an important point to note is it's the duty of the food business to comply with food law. It's not our responsibility to do it for them, and they have to do that. And the sorts of things we're looking for in food law, I won't go through all the reams of food hygiene regulation that are out there, but they obviously things about the structure of the premises, the right number of sinks, toilets, cleanable surfaces are cleaned, kitchen, temperature control train, all these sort of things we assess during an inspection. Obviously our team, their responsibility is they carry out an inspection against the food hygiene regulations and across all those requirements. And at the end of that inspection, they issue a score based on compliance with 3 criteria: the food hygiene procedures and temperature control, the structure of the business, the cleanliness, and also the confidence in management about how the business is running and the records they're keeping. This generates a priority risk rating. You'll see that in the service plan. Businesses are rated category A, B, C, D, E, and that dictates whether they get inspected every 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, etc. Also importantly, that rating that's given, parts of that score is used to generate the National Food Hygiene Rating, which you'll see the stickers on many of the food businesses out there. Those scores will also appear on the national website. I think it's 28 days after the inspection, they become live on the website, so the public have always got full access to those scores. In terms of how our team achieve this level of service, they have legal powers of entry to carry out unannounced inspections at any reasonable time. It's an offence to obstruct an officer on entering the premises. We always try to work with food businesses to secure compliance, and we try to do that informally if possible. We may write a letter and give them a few weeks to comply. But if conditions are so serious or there's ongoing non-compliance, we have all sorts of powers where we can seize food, we can close down a food business, serve a hygiene improvement notice, and ultimately prosecute as well if in the most serious cases. How we decide to do that is based on our council's enforcement policy and also the food law code of practice, and that requires us to take a graduated approach to enforcement. So where possible, trying to take the minimum level enforcement that we can to achieve compliance. In terms of the overview of the service, you'll see in the service plan, we also deal with reactive workload that we can't sort of plan for. We get lots of complaints about food that's been purchased that might be contaminated, complaints about food premises people have gone to. We also get allegations of food poisoning or confirmed cases of food poisoning we need to investigate. And we also respond to national food alerts and emergency responses when that happens across the UK. In terms of the service plan, you'll see a review of last year's performance, and I'm pleased to say that the team were able to complete 100% of all their high-risk inspections, and also the low-risk C, Ds and Es. They also had a lot of new food business registrations, so we planned for that level of workload. We can't control how many new food businesses are opening each year. We had 222 of those last year, which we were able to also complete those inspections. And we were able to complete all our unrated food inspections during the year. So the team have performed very well. We've had some staffing issues, but even despite that, we were able to achieve all the inspections that were needed. You'll also see a section in there about our food hygiene ratings. And you'll see in there that we had 774 businesses rated 5, with a very small number rated at the bottom of the scale, 0 and 1. Well, I would say that where we rate a premises 0, 1, we don't walk away from them. We carry out numerous revisits. We may take enforcement action, and we will work with that business and we'll do lots of revisits to try and improve their performance. And they're able to apply for a rescore, following that inspection if they feel they've secured improvements. But overall, if you look at the big picture, there's good compliance levels overall within that score table. Last year, in terms of reactive workload, we had 40 food complaints that we had to investigate, 90 food premises complaints about hygiene, and also 291 infectious disease notifications. Each one of those has to be investigated. They often will require a visit to a premises and obviously do entail quite a bit of work alongside our inspections that we do. And obviously food alerts, as and when they are issued, we will respond to them. In the service plan, you will see our priorities for the current financial year, and you will see that we're planning to achieve all our planned food hygiene interventions. So there's a total of 345. That will also include 6 approved premises, which are food manufacturers, our largest sort of food manufacturers that have a different regime, and we call them approved premises. So we plan to achieve those as well as all our new food premises that may appear through the year. And obviously, we will also react to any reactive service requests, complaints, food poisoning allegations as and when they appear, and we'll balance that into our work alongside those planned inspections. You'll also see in the service plan there is a food sampling programme with some topics that we'll be targeting this year based on national data, and we will also be carrying out further sampling in those approved manufacturing premises which require additional controls. As always, we also provide advice and support to food businesses, and that comes as part of the service. If businesses call us requesting advice and support, we will do that. In terms of the service plan, you'll see a section on our resources and assurance, and the fact that our team, we've got a lead officer, a team of VHOs, environmental health officers and technical staff. These all are trained to food standardisation requirements, and we carry out regular quality monitoring and internal reviews to ensure that standard is met. I'll just finish off by saying that, as you will see in the service plan, the food and safety team are performing well against statutory duties, protecting residents and supporting businesses, and I recommend the committee endorse this service plan. Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions the committee may have.
Thank you, Matt. And well done on receiving 100% of all your inspections. It's very good, especially when you receive 222 new registration forms. So well done to you and your team. Have we got any questions in the room? Yes, Councillor.
Yeah, thanks, Gareth, for a very, very detailed report. On page 45, we read that we had 4 premises with a rating of number 1. And then in April 2026 has gone up to 18. So we've increased by 14 there. Is this fast food outlets? Is this people's ignorance that they don't have to do certain things? Is this 18 anything that we should be worried about?
I thank you for the question. I wouldn't say I'd be worried about it, because the fact that we've rated them at that level means we will have carried out enhanced revisits and potentially some enforcement. I know some of those have had at least hygiene improvement notices. Unfortunately, we can't control the conditions we find. So in that year, we have found some poor performers. We're not sure exactly the reasons for that. There is a bit of a legacy from COVID where inspections, there were quite big delays. So some businesses, we did find poorer standards. I think we're still finding a little bit of that now as we're doing those inspections. But every one of those which are scored to that lower level will be receiving enhanced inspections. We won't be leaving them alone. They're likely to be inspected at least in 6 months, but we're going to be there in between that time as well. So although I can appreciate that question, I think you can be assured that we will be making sure they meet the required standard.
Yeah, I was pleased to hear you say that you don't walk away from them. So hopefully, if they need help, they can. The borough would give them help so that they can then improve themselves. Yeah, would they stay on a? If they improved, say, really well, and they paid for another visit, would we change them from 1 to a 3 or a 4? Or would we let them remain on number 1 until we were 100% sure that they really were going to maintain that 3 or the 4? Thanks.
Thank you for the question. I think in terms of requesting a rescore, any business, once they get the rating, are allowed to do that. There is a small charge payable. When that inspection takes place, that's also unannounced. It is a fresh review of that food business at that time. So it is possible for a business, if they've applied, better standards and made the improvements, they could potentially jump to a 2, 3, even a 4 possibly. Might be hard to go to a 5 because an element of the scores are confidence in management. So if they were bad a few weeks ago, a few months ago, we do have to weight that into the score. But they certainly can improve their score if they, and we always provide advice and support how they can do that and improve their sort of performance.
Councillor Sedgley.
Thank you, Chairman. I reflect your views about congratulations, firstly. Adjunct to Councillor Hutchison's question there, I assume if somebody gets a 2 and they think they could have done better, they apply, pay and get reassessed. That's to clarify. Okay. And secondly, I'm quite a fan of the system and I deal with people in your role in another authority area sometimes. I've noticed occasionally stickers are not visible at all. And I've also noticed, which you have to be almost subtle to look because it's on the reverse in Borough, they're often out of date, particularly when their current rating online is inferior to the one stuck on the door. A certain Indian one in Drayton, it was still showing 4 or 5 and it was a 2 for 3 months until I reported it. So I'm interested in that. And secondly, on the same point, because obviously you deal with the FSA professionally, could you repeat my belief that the Welsh system should be adopted where the display easy visibility is compulsory rather than seemingly optional, please? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I'll take the latter question first, I think, in terms of the ratings being displayed. It is a difficult issue because the law in Wales is different to England. In Wales, it is a mandatory requirement for schools to be displayed. It's not that in England at the moment. I know the Food Standards Agency are looking to try and get parliamentary time to look at that, but at the moment that's still not a legal requirement. So they don't legally have to put the stick up on the wall or the door. It will be published on the website, whether they like or not. Those do go, every single of our schools do go on the website. Anyone can look those up. They can't get rid of that. In terms of the wrong rating being sort of displayed, then that is an item. If we did come across that, we would work with our training standards colleagues about trading law by deceiving consumers. So it's not something we directly enforce if they were putting the wrong score up, but we would work with our training standards colleagues and inform them, and they would take appropriate action.
Councillor Wheeldon.
Just checking. When you make visits, are they spot check visits? Is the notification given in advance? Is there a mixture of them? And that's for primary visits and secondary visits, the same question.
Thank you for the question. Yes, our officers will aim to carry out all inspections and revisits without an appointment, unannounced, to make sure it's a fair reflection of the standards, because we're there to protect the public. Very occasionally we may make an appointment if there's a reason to look at either meet an individual person or look at a record that we need to have. So there might be the odd occasion where we may make an appointment, but most of our visits are unannounced, so that we get a fair reflection of the standards we find.
Thank you. Councillor Whitmore.
The ones you've got rated 3, you've got 3 at 0. Are they immediately closed down? And if they are, do you go back and give them warnings and give them time to improve? And how long do you give them?
It's hard to give you a specific answer because each of those will be very different premises. And I have obviously haven't got the details to provide in this forum. But if they are scored 0, I do know that some of them will have been voluntarily closed while they make the urgent immediate improvements. And we will then work with them before they reopen. So I do know that has happened in some of those. And we'll, when they do get that sort of score, we will be considering further action because that indicates very poor standards. But we will always try and work with that business as well. So I do know that did happen in a couple of those. And I do believe some of them have already requested rescores and they're in the system as we speak.
Councillor Machin.
There we go. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you for the report. It's a bit of a question that might be slightly unrelated, but on the page where you've got 22 unrated inspections that are due for this year, my question is how long after a restaurant or a food place opens do they have to get inspected? Because there's been quite a few places where I've gone for eat food there and I always do check, and I don't really like to eat from places that are too low, really, just in case. But I've always wondered, how long is it before they actually get their first inspection?
Thank you. Good question. This is dictates to us. We do aim to carry out a food hygiene inspection within 28 days of a food business registering that business. That is something we try to work to. When you consider we had 222 last year, that can be challenging. So sometimes that can slightly slip, but we do aim to work to that deadline wherever possible. And obviously last year we were able to do, I think we're in a better place than some local authority, we were able to get around all our unrated premises. But the expectation is we will try to get to them as soon as possible after when they register, they should tell us what day they plan to open, and we aim to get there within 28 days of that time.
Yeah, that's good. I don't know if it might be different in Stoke, because I will admit a lot of the places I might eat from sometimes might actually be there, but I've noticed that sometimes it's been much longer than 28 days. Sometimes it's been months. So like how do they actually get reviewed in that regard? Like if it is stretching over there and it is like a few months, what's the process there?
Thank you for the question. It's hard to comment on that because that's a different local authority. They will be subject to the same requirements of producing a service plan and like we're doing tonight and coming to their committee. And that's probably the forum where that could be discussed, but it's not something I can really talk about because it's not in our borough.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any more questions? So if there are no more questions, then is the committee happy to receive and endorse the Food Safety Service Plan for 2026-27? All in favour? Thank you very much. Item 8 on the agenda is the minutes of the Public Protection Subcommittee on the 11th of March and the 22nd of April. Are we happy to approve those as a true record of the meeting?
Chair, I was the chair on both of those meetings, and the minutes are fine. On first one, the dual driver's licence was revoked, and rightly so. And in the second one, again, the dual driver licence was revoked as well. So the minutes are correct. I was the chair of those meetings. Thank you.
Thank you for covering that, Councillor Hutchinson. So finally, as item 9 on the agenda is disclosure of exempt information. I have no reports for this evening. So the one last thing, Matthew, I think we spoke earlier. Do you need to just ask the room anything for the next 2 meetings?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I alluded to it briefly in my report. We have 2 public protection subcommittees which don't feature on the rota. They're just to deal with some of the backlog cases to allow for training to take place. We do have 3 members for each of them, so we are quorate, but it is always a benefit of having 4 members at each one. So if there are any members in the room, 4 members or substitute members who are available either tomorrow afternoon from, I'll just check if it's 1 or 1:30, and then on the 7th from 1 or 1:30. If you just let me know afterwards, I can send you all the paperwork in relation to that. The meetings will be here. There'll be 3 cases or 4 cases, depending on which day it is. And it's just a really good opportunity to get sort of stuck into the types of matters that you'll see on a reasonably regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wheeldon.
Just check with Matt, I've got my name down tomorrow afternoon.
Yes, councillor, for tomorrow afternoon.
Is there any more questions from Matt before? Yes, councillor.
For tomorrow, yes, I have councillors Wheeldon, Casey, Hume and Stevenson. I did, yes, thank you.
So that concludes this evening's meeting. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance.